Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 345 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. We're so glad to have you with us. Hope you're doing well. We are in the 30-day countdown to the February 2021 bar exam, and that's going to be the topic of today's episode. My co-host Megan is going to join me in a few minutes, and we're going to answer some questions from students as they get into this final stretch of studies leading up to the exam. And I think you're going to find it interesting, even if you're not taking the February exam. These are the questions that people inevitably ask before their particular date of the bar exam. And we thought it would be helpful to go through some of those particular questions. Now, one of the questions that you'll hear us talk about in today's episode has to do with being ready for the test. We've got a mindset coach on our team, and she and I were talking after the podcast or after the Q&A that we did. And she said, I'm not sure that talking about being ready is actually the right terminology to use. And I think she may have been correct about this. She said, the difference is, are you ready versus are you prepared? And I love that distinction. Most bar takers probably don't think they're ready ever. They're never ready. They never know everything entirely. The question really should be, are you prepared? Have you done your work? Have you completed the assignments? Have you practiced enough? And if you've done that, you're prepared, and you can go into the exam with a great deal of confidence if you're prepared. So really the question you should be asking is not, am I ready to take the exam in 20 some days, but am I prepared to take the exam? And I wanted to make that distinction because I think it's so important as you think about these upcoming days leading up to the test. Now, before we get to the questions and answers that Megan and I went through, I want to let all of you about a free special training webinar that we're offering for people that are taking the exam in July of 2021 or anytime now in 2022. And the title of this free training webinar is Now is the Best Time to Take the Bar Exam, Why You Should Ignore the Crowds and the Fear. In this 1 hour training, we're going to look at a specific strategy to run counter to the culture, counter to what everybody is doing, that has worked very well for our students since the pandemic started back in 2020. We're going to take you through step-by-step what's going on. We'll also look at the current state of the bar exam. We'll pay particular attention to big jurisdictions like California, Florida, New York, Texas, Georgia, and of course the UBE to give you a sense of what's happening with online exams, open book exams, grading of the exams, all sorts of things that apply to that. And then at the end of the training, I'll jump on for a live Q&A to answer any questions you might have about your particular jurisdiction or circumstances or the strategy that we've offered. We also make some great offers to help you get started to make now the best time to take the bar exam. And I hope you'll join me for this. As I said, it's completely free. And all you have to do is go to the show notes and click on the button to register. Or you can go to celebrationbarreview.com/now, get more details and register there. We're going to be offering this training on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, that's 2 o'clock Pacific. And even if you can't make that specific time, there'll be a replay sent to you. So make sure you sign up and join us. And if you can come on with us, you'll be able to participate in that live Q&A. And I think you'll find that really helpful. So hope you'll join us for that if you're taking the bar exam in July of 2021 or sometime in 2022. But if you're taking the bar exam in February of 2021, I know your focus is on what's coming up in just a few weeks. And so we wanted to focus on that today. And so I won't keep you waiting any longer. We'll jump into the question and answers that Megan and I talked about from our students as they prepare for the upcoming bar exam.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well. A couple weeks off, a week off. It seems like forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's been a crazy season with trying to get everybody prepped for the February exam when we just finished the last one and California just got their results. And yeah, so it's been an unusual January in the bar exam world.
Boy, it has. And we are how many days? 28 days or so as we're recording today? Yeah, to the February exam. So For those of you that are aiming for the February exam, we've got some tools we're going to talk about today that are really great last-minute tools. We'll get to those. For those of you that are studying for the July exam, listen, it's not too early. You should be studying right now. You should be into the process because you don't want to be panicked at the end. So definitely doing that. I guess we've got some general stuff to cover, and then we're going to get to student questions.
Yeah, definitely. So let's start out talking about that. As you said, we're about 28 days away from the February exam. So what are the emotions that are happening and that people are feeling and going through right now?
I would say based on the emails that I'm reading, and I know you're having conferences and reading emails as well, I think that there's a combination of exhaustion because the last bar exam season ran so long. So many people have described that to me as a marathon. It certainly felt like that to me, and I think to you. But for people that weren't successful in July, August, September, October, whatever exam they took, I think it's really been tough to cycle around to this February exam. And so I think there's a lot of just mental exhaustion. There's a lot of frustration that it's just here we are again and going back into it. And I think it's a more anxious season than I've seen typically from students. 28 days out is never a fun time, but this seems to be especially worse. What's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of panic that we're seeing from people, and I would say unnecessary panic. This is not, because they're wildly unprepared. I think that a month out feels even closer than it normally would because of how short the season has been from when people got their results, or even if they took the test and started studying right away. It was just such a short amount of time, so much quicker than people were used to. And so now they're feeling a bit more panicky than they normally would. And certainly, obviously, we never advocate panic. So certainly more panic than they should be feeling at this point.
Yeah, and there are tools to help with that. We've got June, if you could find the offer for the Calm and Health Paraliminal Pack. It's a series of 4 recordings that are just focused on staying calm and healthy. Paraliminal recordings are really useful. I was listening to one right before we started today's session. I love them. I think what's really important is to remember that at this stage, if you don't feel like you're ready for the exam, that's normal. You're probably not ready today for the exam. The exam feels, though, as Megan said, it feels like it's right now. It's like going to happen right this moment. It's not. 28 days is still a really long way away. And when you do the daily countdown that I send, it's, oh my God, here he is. He's emailing me again. It's another day. It takes a long time to get to that 28th day, and your competency will rise as you go along, and that will reduce the tension and the pressure. I would say each day it should get better for you because the exam won't feel any closer than it feels today, but your ability and your competence will improve every day. And so you just have to take that view and understand that what you're feeling is a little bit of a mirage. It's not really what's going on. It's just, it feels like it, but it's not objectively that way.
And what are you seeing, Jackson, in terms of people feeling that panic, and are they sticking through it and pushing through to the other side, or jumping ship?
I think they're jumping ship. I said to you before we went live today, I feel like I'm standing at the one end of the Red Sea and it's parting and people are racing to try and get to the other side. I totally understand anyone that wants to defer, and you can do that. That's not a problem in the course. We've made that super easy, no cost, simple. You don't have to give us a reason, just say I'm deferring. On the other hand, if you can hang in there and take the exam, you and I were talking about it, Megan, I think we're going to see a huge drop off in the numbers of people actually taking the test. I just think it's going to be probably the smallest February test we've seen in a decade. And that means there's less competition for passing spots. So if there's a way that you can hang in, please do. But I got to tell you, every single day we're hearing from students who are saying, I just can't do it. I'm jumping to July or even February of 2022. It's hard. I don't know what else to tell you. It just is hard. And if you're feeling bad about it, don't feel bad. It's just the reality of this circumstance.
Yeah, definitely. And we're here for you whenever you're going to take the exam. But we certainly recommend, if you're able, take it in February if possible, because it is going, I mean, we're just seeing it across the board in every jurisdiction that people are saying, I registered for the February exam, but I'm not going to sit for it anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really curious to see the numbers of people who actually took the exam once that comes out. Definitely. But Someone asked, I downloaded the Examplify software. However, I cannot cut and paste. What do I do?
Yeah, this one's a little complicated. I think there are three answers we have to give. First, you have to check with your jurisdiction because not every jurisdiction is allowing copying and pasting. So that's the first critical step. Secondly, if they're allowing copying and pasting in your jurisdiction, you have to find out when they'll allow it. For example, can you use it in essays? Can you use it in performance tests? Those rules are different in different jurisdictions. You may be allowed to use it on one and not the other, maybe on both. Third, you can't use Command C and Command V, or whatever the Windows equivalent is, what Control C and V probably, because they were worried about cheating. So you have to actually go into the Examplify software and highlight the text and then use, if it's been enabled, it'll show up in the text or in the menu that you can copy it, and then you go to where you want it and then you use their system to paste it. And this again was to keep people, I think you said, Megan, they were worried about people having stuff on their phones or pads off to the side.
Yeah,
that they could somehow copy.
On Macs, it allows you, if like your phone and your laptop are synced up and things like that. And so the concern was you could copy something off of your phone and paste it into your document on Examplify if you had an Apple. So they recognized that problem before the online exams happened last cycle, and they disabled that feature by getting around it in this different way.
Yeah. So anyway, check with your jurisdiction. This is the time to be really looking at all of that and making sure if you're taking the February exam, read your email. Just read it, read everything, because you're going to get a lot of email from a lot of sources. And I know that there's a tendency to want to just blow it all off and say it's just junk mail. It is not. And check your junk mail folder or your promotions tab in Gmail. There is a lot of communication that comes. We learned this last fall. There was a lot of last minute communication from the bar examiners as they went online. Hopefully it's quieted down this year. I think we'll still see some last minute changes. So be aware of that.
Great. All right. And I'm a bit concerned about the noise I might experience during my exam. I'll be taking the exam in my apartment in NYC where construction's being done on my building. They make lots of noise, etc. I have no other place I can think of where I take my remote exam. Do you think this will be a problem since the sound might interfere with the audio recording of my remote exam? I will wear earplugs.
Yeah, I think it could. I would contact the bar examiners and Examplify, and I think that's who's doing the New York exam, and talk through what the options are. And I think New York is one of the jurisdictions that offered some quiet rooms, didn't they, last year? Libraries or
yes, and like law schools. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would check into that. New York is uniquely loud. Having lived in Manhattan, they're going to be noise, much less the construction, but all the sirens and all the other things. So it may be that you want to go to a quiet spot. And typically, at least in the fall, New York and several other jurisdictions, I think California did this as well, designated some schools and libraries where you could sit for the exam that would be quiet spots. Beyond that, I'm not sure what else you can do. You've got to be in a place where you've got an internet connection. You certainly can't go in any public place. You're just going to have to do the best you can. The earplugs for you, as long as they're acceptable to the bar examiners, that's great. You can't use over-the-ear headphones, I don't think. So I think you're just locked into that and you're going to have to deal with it. I think our experience in the fall, however, across the country, I'll just say this generally, for the most part, the examiners were pretty forgiving and pretty understanding of the circumstances. Now, California, that we talked about last time, flagged about a third of the applicants, a crazy number, for potential violations. But then humans reviewed the AI and said it's not, there are very few actual violations. So I think in a lot of jurisdictions, what we're seeing is that the examiners recognize that there are just limitations. There are things that you're going to blink, you're going to stretch, you're going to move your head. Just don't be crazy. Don't do this and then look up at that kind of stuff. And I've been talking to students who passed their exams in the fall. We've been interviewing them, and I've been asking them about the online experience. And I will say, most of them feel pretty good about it. They felt like it was okay. So if it's making you nervous, I understand that, but I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah, don't panic. Yes, you may get flagged initially by AI if it's really loud, but a human being is going to look at it then. So it's not like you failed if there was a jackhammer outside your window. Actual person will listen, and if it's very clear I think it would be very clear to them very quickly, oh, it's construction outside her window. That is not someone yelling the answers from, outside.
I don't think they're doing it in Morse code.
Exactly. Yeah, don't panic about regular of noises and things like that that'll happen.
Yeah.
We had another question in the chat box about the taking it online and on Examplify that I want to say real quick. This Tiari said, my typing skills and accuracy aren't great. In prior bar exams, I've allowed for a few minutes at the end for spell check. Do you know if the online exam has a spell check, or can you recommend whom I should contact to find out?
You always want to talk to the bar examiners. There's a spell check built into Examplify. It's pretty rudimentary, but it's there. And remember that in the online testing format, you're going to have a specified period of time for each essay. It's not like you can steal time from one to the other. So each particular question is going to be handled in its own unique time frame. So if you're in California, it'll be 60 minutes and that's it for question one. If you're in Florida, the same thing. If you're in Georgia, I think we think it's 45 minutes for the essays. And in the UB, it's 30 minutes for each essay. And it's literally going to be just 30 minutes and then you've got to stop before you go to the next question. So make sure you save a little bit of time, whatever jurisdiction you're in, to go back and do that.
I think the thing to note is that the software is the same. So the software is the same as I took when I took the California bar many years ago.
Way back when, 10 years ago, right?
This is my 10-year, May will be 10-year loss. We can't have our reunion because of COVID, but yes, but even then, where I went to a huge ballroom in Culver City and sat down and took it, it's the same software. The only difference is that you're taking it at home and that they have now added the question onto the page instead of having it be a physical piece of paper. So in terms of the copy and paste is different because before you didn't have a question in the box to copy or paste. So it was not even a necessary component. And now they have that in there. But things like spell check, it's just part of it.
And you should definitely be practicing in an online format. All of our course materials are online. So you should be doing your questions, reading them online, and then answering them online for essays, performance tests, and for multi-state, just to get used to that.
All right, let's move into some study strategy questions in the chat box. I've started studying very late and I'm still at the beginning of the syllabus. Do you think I still have time? And secondly, if I purchase the photo reading, will that help me get ready for the February exam, considering I'm so far behind? Thanks.
I think we are right at the edge of where I think you can successfully add photo reading. I know we've got a bunch of photo reading questions we're going to cover at the end today. Photo reading takes an hour a day while you're studying for the bar. So if you start today, you will be done with 3 weeks to go before the exam with all of the photo reading lessons, but you will have been studying for the bar during this week as well. Photo reading will save you an enormous amount of time. So I think it is a very important tool to use. And I would encourage people to jump in there, order it. You can start learning it right away. After a couple of hours lessons, like day 1, day 2, you'll be photo reading. So I think that's really helpful to get underway. I think that when we get close like this, the best you can do is lay out your week at a time, figure out how many assignments you need to get accomplished in order to be ready by exam date. You will have very little time for review. It'll be mostly getting all the way through the substance. And then I think the reality is, as you get closer to exam date, so January, when you get to February 18th or 20th, then look and see where you are, and you may have to defer. That's the worst thing that happens. But if you've been working successfully, if you don't have anything else to do and you're studying full time, you could definitely be ready. And every exam, I have people at this stage who kick it into gear, who add photo reading, and they pass the exam. It absolutely could be done. It's all a matter of your availability. Now, if you're working full time, no, you're not going to be ready for the February exam if you're just starting your studies, because the course generally takes about 250 hours to complete, the whole bar review course. But that includes the review, and you're probably not going to do review if you're right at the end. There's not much opportunity for that. So I think you can do it. I would encourage you to try to make the effort for all the reasons we talked about earlier. We think there are fewer people are going to take the exam. So it's to your benefit to try and get in and take it. There's one exception to that I want to make clear. If you are in a jurisdiction like Texas that puts a limit on the number of times you can take the exam, please don't waste a try if you're not ready to take the exam. I had some people that told me that they took Texas last year and they weren't ready. They hadn't prepared. And it broke my heart because you only get 5 tries at that test. Don't waste one of your tries when you're not ready. So outside of that, if you're in California or Florida or Georgia, where unlimited opportunities, or UBE, most states, go for it. But if you're in New York or Texas, be careful because you don't get many tries.
All right. And now what about for students who have been working steadily this whole time? Do you have, and are taking the February exam, do you have any recommendations as to how they should allocate their time? And one student said, my assumption would be to take any extra time I have at the end and put it where I need it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Work to your weaknesses, right? You and I talk a lot about, we want students to be uncomfortable in the last month, in the sense that we want you doing the things you're not good at. That's how you're going to improve. Human nature is we gravitate to the things we feel good about, and then we are task avoidant about the other stuff. Don't do that. Stay in the things that are difficult for you. I think there are a couple of other tools. I've sent some emails out this week, and I wanted to highlight them. Maybe this is a good place to do it. There are a couple of tools that I think will help you at the end for review. The nutshells are a series of videos that take 25 minutes each. They review the key points of each MBE subject. And I think they're absolutely fabulous to use. And with the nutshells, what happens is that you have the opportunity to work through, and you can listen to those and just get the whole subject. And it happens really fast. So it's going to the non-conscious brain. So if you want a really quick review of the MBE, that's a great tool. You can get those, they go into your permanent library. So I think that's a really great tool. The other tool that we'll come back to later and is for bar maps, and that's the interactive videos and the mind maps and the fast finish audios. So those three products, photo reading, nutshells, and bar maps, are all great at the end to help you do what that student was asking. How do I go to the things I'm not good at or that I'm having the most trouble with? The bar maps are great because there you can find the part of the lecture that if you're struggling with the rule against perpetuities, I don't know why you would because it's so easy. But if you were, you'd find that section in the property bar map and you go right to that and just zero in on that part of the subject. And there it is. And you've got the fast finish audio. So a lot of different stuff there. Okay.
All right, great. One more scheduling question from a student. This person has been trying to make a schedule for the next few weeks and is planning on purchasing photo reading. So they asked, should I wait to make the schedule, or is this a skeleton of what I should put in my schedule? So basically, is photo reading going to change what their study schedule looks like?
Yeah, photo reading is going to change it. That's why we give you a special syllabus that's really granular. It says photo read for 15 minutes, do a mind map for an hour, watch this lecture for 2 hours, and so on. I would not waste your time making a schedule until you've purchased photo reading, because we're going to give you the schedule. And it's different than the schedule that's in your regular study guide. So if you're a photo reader, I want to say this. If you're a photo reader and you're not using the photo reading syllabus, you will find it in your photo reading online module from us. Get that today, print it out and use it. That's the one you should be using. The syllabus that's in the study guide book is for non-photo readers, different syllabus.
All right, great. Okay, next we have a student ask, how do I do an MPT online?
That was a great question. And we wrestled that in last fall. And so we put together a video in your online video section for your state course. There was a video on how to do an online MPT. It is very different than doing it in paper and pencil. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Way different. And it seemed to work pretty well. Most of the students I talked to felt like they maneuvered through it pretty well. We saw some decent scores. I think most people are having trouble with online MPTs across the country. And so I think our students probably did better than most, really, when I look at it. That was not where people had the most difficulty when they weren't successful on the exam. Their MPT scores were actually pretty good for the most part, where we saw, it broken out. So if you're in Georgia, California, or the UBE, you have a lecture on how to do MPTs, but then you've got to practice it, because there is no way you're going to be able to do this for the first time, or if you've only done it once in practice. It's just way too complicated. And I'll add one other thing. If you're a photo reader, you've got a huge advantage for MPTs. So I think that's like your secret weapon. Literally, it is a big advantage.
Great. Let's move into photo reading. I know we've had a lot of little questions about it in terms of studying or setting up people's study strategies, but let's talk about what it is and how it'll work. So we'll do that. We'll frame it up with some questions.
Okay.
All right. As I'll lead into this. I liked this question. Someone said, I'm very interested in photo reading. I'm not a technical person and I need to understand this method better. What do I have to do to get a better understanding of this method of reading, which I need?
Yeah, don't make things too complicated. Photo reading is at its core very simple. You are flipping pages as fast as you can turn them because your eyes have the ability to see much wider, peripheral vision, and grab the information, and it gets processed in the non-conscious brain. So photo reading at its basis is literally just turning pages and taking a mental snapshot of every page. Now, the key to photo reading, because you can't do it incorrectly, it is a natural human thing that happens. You've been photo reading all your life. You just got slowed down in school when they told you to read word for word, line for line. But the key is, how do you activate it? And the activation comes primarily through watching and listening to the lectures, doing the question practice, and by doing mind maps. And when you do those things, what happens is the material starts to appear to you. It comes out of nowhere. I've been doing interviews with successful students, and they talk about photo reading, and they say, I don't know how it works. I just know that it works, and that I knew words, I knew things. I did an interview with a foreign trained attorney who passed the Florida bar yesterday, and she talks about how after she started photo reading, she knew words in English that she didn't know she knew. They were just there. And she said, where does that come from? It came from the photo reading. So you don't have to be a technical person to be a photo reader. All you have to do is be able to turn the pages. We will show you everything that you need to do in these simple bite-sized steps. The photo reading course, as I said, takes 8 lessons to go through, but you will actually be photo reading after about lesson 3. And then everything else is Louisiana, they call it lagniappe. It's extra. It's just the additional stuff that makes you better at it and a little more comfortable. I also want to say, it probably could be one of the questions that comes up, you don't need printed books for photo reading. It works just as well in a digital format as it does with a printed book. Your eyes take in the material either way. So whether it's on your laptop or desktop or pad, or you're using a printed book, you're getting the same input. And so it doesn't really matter. So don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the, like, I got to learn too much or it's too much technical. There's really nothing technical about it.
Great. And for people who are doing photo reading on this screen, we have a question. When I begin to photo read and keep my eyes at the top of my laptop screen, looking at the 4 corners of the screen and maintaining a visual on the white area within the paragraphs like I'm supposed to, I can't make out what the paragraphs say. It's blurry.
That's the idea.
Is that normal, or am I doing something wrong?
No, it's exactly, see, this is where people get into overthinking it. You actually, and you know this, we do it in boot camp. We have people read upside down and backwards, whether they're digital or hard copy, because we don't want you to fixate on words or paragraphs or sentences. Your brain takes in all of this information regardless. The only reason that we're asking you to try and find the white space or to look over the top of the screen is to give your conscious mind something to think about. It's a little bit like, I know, Megan, you've got this monster of a dog. And when you want the dog to go do something, you throw the bone for the dog. And then while the dog's racing out to get the bone, you can do something else. I think of our conscious mind a little bit like Moose the dog, right? We're throwing the bone out there to our conscious mind so that we can get to the non-conscious and get this information in more readily. So it doesn't matter if you see words or not. In fact, I prefer that you not see words. If you'll just trust that you're getting it, you will begin to see that happen. The problem is people then start clenching. They get tight and they get frightened and they think, I must be able to speed read every word on this page. And that's exactly the opposite of what we want. We don't want you to see anything. We want a soft gaze. And literally, when you're done photo reading, it is completely unsatisfying. There's nothing in your conscious brain that feels like it's working. It didn't do anything. You don't know anything because your conscious mind went out to get the bone. And it has nothing to do with your conscious brain. So don't let that throw you. Just recognize that you'll have it available to you when you need it, when we activate it through the question or through mind mapping or the lecture or whatever piece it is.
Great. I thought this was a good question from a student in the chat box. Can I do both regular and photo reading?
Yeah, I think you're probably an example of that, Megan. You know how to photo read, but you're a fast reader, so you bounce back and forth. I think there are moments when we all go back to normal reading, traditional reading, just because it's satisfying to our conscious minds. I have to, even after I think almost 13 or 14 years of photo reading now, there are times that I stop and actually read things at what feels like a laboriously slow speed of word for word, line for line, because I just want to be in that moment. I want to be reading that thing. You can do both, but I think what you'll discover after a while is that photo reading is so much more efficient for the bar that you're going to photo read your bar stuff. Now, you may choose to read Outlander at a slower speed because it's more enjoyable to you. But for bar study, I think photo reading is going to be the more efficient way to get your work done. And then within photo reading, we have what we call skittering, super dip and skim, rapid read. These are all forms of faster reading, but not photo reading. So it's like a continuum, and we teach you how to do that.
Great.
Let me just say this about photo reading. I've done a couple of interviews recently with a successful California student, a successful Florida student, but many others. But just in the last 2 weeks, I've done those two. And both of these individuals talked about the difference photo reading made for them, and it was a game changer. Both of them were repeat bar takers. Both of them employed photo reading for the first time, and it changed everything. It moved them from failing to passing. And that's their view. That was the tool, the key to being successful. If you are struggling with how to write essays, if you're struggling with doing multiple choice, if you are struggling with reading and comprehension, photo reading can solve those problems. It is a remarkable tool, and it is everything we've said. Will it be weird? Yes. Will it seem strange to you? Yes. Will it be like, oh my God, they snaked me out of $400? Yes, it will feel that way right up until the moment when you know something and you don't know why you know it, and you go, wow, I think it does work. So I really encourage you to give it a try. That's why we offer it. We've seen the difference it can make to people. Unfortunately, we are unable to do our live boot camps where we get to talk more about this. So it's been weird, hasn't it, Megan? Without boot camp, we don't get that opportunity to really explain photo reading in the way that we normally do. So there you go.
Yeah. Our last question, I thought this was a good broad one that I think a lot of people might be feeling right now. All right. The student says, I'm at a point where I'm running into a wall every single day and don't know what to do. And I have now less than 30 days to go. I'm finished with con law. What do I need to do to pass this exam? I had a session with Megan and got amazing feedback from her, after which I felt so empowered. Yes, there are a myriad of things in life that are simultaneously occurring, but when are they not? What do I need to do to pass, Jackson?
I'm going to give a philosophical answer. You may give a more practical answer because I think both of us need to respond to this. Here's my philosophical answer. We are by nature designed to be supportive of our interior, our ego, and our self-image. And when we think we're not going to be successful at anything important, our internal tape recording says we got to find a way out, right? We've got to have an escape hatch, something that lets us keep our integrity intact. And so we say, I would have passed the exam except for that terrible thing that happened, or except for COVID, or except for having to take care of my mother, or whatever it might be. And those are all legitimate things, right? They're all real things. On the other hand, if passing the bar was the most important thing on your list, if you were not going to be deterred because it just was critical to you, if you didn't pass the bar, some horrible, awful thing would happen to you, you would set aside everything else in order to be ready for the test. And so what happens is we end up deprioritizing the test because it's painful, it's a lot of work, it's got an uncertain outcome, it feels like we might fail. And instead of feeling like we're going to go all out and fail spectacularly, perhaps, we pull back, we withhold, and we say, oh, I've got to deal with this thing. And the bar kind of slips down a notch, and then something else, and it slips down another notch and another notch. And what we're doing is we're really trying to put a rib protector around our ego. We're trying to say, I really am afraid I'm going to fail, and I don't want that to happen because that would mean maybe I'm a failure, which is not true. But I feel like I'm a failure. And so instead of having that feeling, what I think I'm going to do is I'm just not going to put as much time and energy and effort in so that when I fail, it will be okay. And so I think at some level, what you have to do is be prepared to set your ego aside, literally, and say, I am going to go all out. If I'm a poker player, all my chips are on the table. If you're Wonder Woman, you're running across the no man's zone. Whatever it is, you just say, that's it, I'm all in. And when you're all in, you might fail. It can happen. But you definitely can't pass with something less than all in. And I think that's the essence of it. Maybe too philosophical, but that's the way I see it. What's your take on that?
No, I think that's great. So since you went philosophical, I'll go more concrete. I think so speaking broadly to people, if they're like, what do I need to do to pass this exam? You need to be studying every day. You need to set aside a set amount of time and hit those marks. You need to be focused on your study. I know, Jackson, you talk about this a lot. You're 100% in it when you're in it, and then you can walk away and have dinner, read a book, do something else. That's fine. It's not that but no half in, half out. You should, I really firmly believe you should do conferences with me or Jackson, or you should do the personal writing workshop with me. I'm just telling you that there is really no substitute for someone who knows what they're doing looking over your work. It's heartbreaking when I see students who have failed over and over again, and they finally come to one of us and say, okay, I've never let anybody look at my writing. Here, look at my writing. And it's so clear. This is where it's such an easy fix, and you just didn't know because you don't know what you don't know sometimes in terms of how you need to be writing. So I highly suggest that. You need to be practicing the MBE questions. We have all of them online in the software. Jackson gets those score reports, like he should be seeing your name because you should be doing those regularly. You need to be timing yourself on your essays. Don't write an essay where you spend 2 hours thinking about it, or you go and look up the law. You read the question and then you go and look up the law and then you come back to it. At this point, if you're taking the February exam, certainly you need to be sitting down and doing it under time conditions without looking at your notes. You need to be mind mapping. Whether or not you are going to be able to use those mind maps on the exam, you need to use them now as you're studying. Take an essay after you've written it. Go through the law that's inside of it. Go look at your mind map. Do you have that law in your mind map? If not, put it in. Do you understand it? Was it clear? Are there any parts of it that don't make sense? Was there an element that you forgot about, or you didn't really understand how that element functions? You need to express that. Make sure that you understand it. Go back to the outline. Go back to the lecture. See how it feels, how it works together, how it functions in a real fact scenario instead of in the abstract, and make sure that you understand that. Those are all the things that I suggest to absolutely every single person in terms of the functional, how you're going to pass.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I think when you combine those two things that we've talked about, that's a pretty good roadmap for what needs to happen. I think being aware that you've got those concerns and blocks is really important. At some level, though, I think ultimately it all comes down to you. We can only do so much. We can offer you these tools, we can offer you this guidance, but we can't take the exam for you. We can't force you to study. We can't force you to get into all of this. And so you ultimately are the manager of your own destiny here. And really don't feel like a victim. Take control of what you're doing, own it, own the process, and then own the result. And if you do that, I think that's the best way to go. You may not pass, but you'll have your head held high. And I've never seen a student that really worked hard, even when they failed, who said, I'm sorry I did that. I think the people that have regrets are the ones that say, you know what, I skipped around and I didn't do all the things. I didn't have anybody to look at my work. I didn't do this or this. Those are the people with regrets. And I don't want you to have regrets whenever you take the exam. So hope that helps.
Yep. Yeah, we're here for all of you, definitely. And the whole team is.
Yeah.
So we're on a team with you, every single one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be back next week. We're going to be here right on through the exam now, all things being equal. And we will be aiming closer and closer as we get nearer to that exam. Again, want to remind those of you taking the exam later in 2021 or 2022 to get underway. Don't wait. And even though we're talking a lot about February 2021, all this stuff applies to you as well.
Great.
All right. Great. Hope everybody has a great study week. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you again next Wednesday. Thank you all for being here. That's our episode for this week. I hope those answers were helpful to you. I particularly loved Megan's answer at the end, talking about the practical things you have to do in order to get ready for the exam, to be prepared for the exam, and I hope you'll check those out. Now, one of the things that we think can make a big difference is to start your studies early. You heard us talk about that. And one of the best ways to do that is to attend our free training webinar. Now is the best time to take the bar exam. It's coming up this Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. You do need to register, and you can do that by clicking on the show notes. There's a button in the link for the video or the audio, or by going to celebrationbarreview.com/now. You can get all the details there, and then join us for that special webinar. All right, everybody, I hope you have a great week. Hope your studies are going well. If you're taking the exam in February, hang in there. You're getting close to the finish line. And if you're taking the exam later, now's the best time to get going. So we'll see you next week along the Extra Mile. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.